Hi, my name is Stephen Sanders. I serve as lead pastor at Oak Hill United Methodist Church in Austin. I want to share with you some things that are going on in the United Methodist Church. Some of what I share may sound familiar, but I want everyone to be on the same page. Over the last 50 years, there has been continual conflict within the United Methodist Church on issues of human sexuality, specifically around two questions. Number one, can people who are part of the LGBT community be ordained as pastors in the United Methodist Church? Currently, they cannot. And number two, may United Methodist clergy officiate at same-sex weddings? Currently, we may not without being removed from ministry and forfeiting all compensation for at least a year. Earlier this year, a new denomination was formed. It's called the Global Methodist Church, or GMC. And over the last several months, many of the more traditional conservative congregations have been disaffiliating, leaving the United Methodist Church and either joining the Global Methodist Church or becoming independent, so-called non-denominational congregations. They believe that God calls them to take an even stronger stance against ordaining people who are part of the LGBT community and allowing clergy to officiate at same-sex weddings. They're concerned that the United Methodist Church may change its existing teachings and polity, and they do not believe that they can be part of such a denomination. 2 Saturdays ago, there was a special called session of what is known as the Rio Texas Annual Conference. That is the organizational unit that Oak Hill is a part of. And at that meeting, 33 congregations disaffiliated left the United Methodist Church. One of those was Driftwood United Methodist Church. At the annual meeting of the Rio Texas Conference that takes place in early June, several other United Methodist churches will disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church. I do not know the exact number of those. Unfortunately, 25 to 30 congregations have decided not to follow the disaffiliation process that we have as a denomination, and have instead taken the issue into the court system. And one of those is Dripping Springs United Methodist Church. What does all of this mean for the United Methodist Church? Frankly, no one knows. I suspect that as our more traditional conservative voices leave the denomination, there will be a change in the United Methodist position on questions of human sexuality. Any of those changes must be adopted by the global body called General Conference that will not meet until 2024. More immediately, however, the Rio Texas Annual Conference is going to have to make changes in the way that it does ministry. Although only about 15% of the roughly 350 congregations in the Rio Texas Annual Conference have chosen to disaffiliate, my back of the napkin or back of the envelope calculation says that represents about a quarter of the amount of money that the annual conference receives through what is called apportionments. And so the Rio Texas Annual Conference is going to have to adjust and find new ways to be in ministry with a reduced amount of funding. I actually think that's okay, because I think it's important for organizations to adapt and change to a changing environment. And this should have no or minimal financial impact upon Oak Hill. What does this mean for Oak Hill? At one level, absolutely nothing. The only question that is before congregations is whether they want to disaffiliate, leave the United Methodist Church. Our church council is the official leadership body at Oak Hill, and in January they talked about the issue and do not believe that God is calling us to leave the United Methodist Church at this point. Since no vote is required, our church is not taking any action. At another level, however, this issue affects us deeply. Before any of your pastors were appointed here, Oak Hill went through a season of intense conflict around questions of human sexuality. I have visited with people who have been deeply hurt. I have visited with people who have family and friends who are part of the LGBT community, and they desperately want their family and friends to be fully welcomed within this congregation. I have also visited with people who have a more traditional perspective on questions of human sexuality, and they also want for Oak Hill to be their church home. Here's what I commit to do. I commit to lead this congregation so that we can live together as a community where all of God's children are welcome, including with people with different perspectives on a divisive issue. Oak Hill can serve as an example of how people can live together in love even when they disagree. And my friends, our world needs to see that example from the church. What do we need to do right now? I share two things. First, I ask that we have compassion on our neighboring congregations. This is a tough decision. Congregations are dividing over this issue, and people are getting hurt. Let's not demonize anyone or any other congregation. That is not who God calls us to be. I ask that we act with compassion and assume that our sisters and brothers in Christ and other churches are being faithful to what God calls them to do. The other thing that I ask is that we have compassion for people who are leaving their church homes. Over the last few weeks, I have visited with people from Driftwood, Dripping Springs, and Seguin United Methodist churches. And because of their church's decision to disaffiliate, they feel that they have lost their church home. And that breaks my heart. So here's what I ask of you. If you know someone who feels that she has lost his or her church home, invite them to Oak Hill. Let them know that this is a loving, faithful community of faith that will welcome all of God's children. And if they are interested, let them know that we at Oak Hill will work with them to launch a new United Methodist community of faith in their area. Unless something weird happens, I'm not going to share another update on what's going on in the United Methodist Church until late summer or early fall. If something weird does happen, I will share an update. I want to put my energy into helping Oak Hill live as the community of faith that God calls it to be. I pray that during this season of disruption in our own denomination, that we at Oak Hill can share the light of Christ in our community. And that as we do so, God will use it to change the world.